Hello! Slightly different video today, although on the same sort of lines as what I do normally. For people who watch the channel regularly, they'll know that majority of my videos are about two things really. My sort of Romany heritage background stuff, which is like the gypsy wagons and sort of Romany related videos and how I live on my site. The other side of the coin is some of the off-grid stuff. Obviously I live off-grid, I live in an old railway carriage that I've converted, and so there's a lot of videos around about that sort of thing. This one falls sort of in the middle of both really. Now before it became sort of super trendy to live off-grid and low impact housing and passive housing and all these little buzzwords you hear all the time, it was going on in this country. It was just that it was for different reasons. After the war, a lot of people ended up in the railway carriages because they were cheap and affordable living, and if you got demobbed you could get a railway carriage for nothing, and so a lot of people in Norfolk, Suffolk and around Essex ended up living in those as cheap affordable housing in the sort of 20s and 30s. And then they'd done a lot of prefabricated housing, which was a temporary measure, so people could have somewhere to live cheap and cheerful, you know, until they built more houses. And then obviously in the 60s and onwards they started building a lot of council properties, and I was brought up in a council house, 60s council house. And what I'm going to show you today is basically it's a 1950s prefabricated home. Nothing particularly spectacular about that, other than these were flat pack houses. They were made in the 50s and they turned up on the lorry, and they were constructed from a steel frame and asbestos sheeting, wood packed floors, and they were probably your first sort of mail order come sort of pre-packed housing really. So I'm going to show you around this one today. It's quite an interesting, quirky little place, and yeah, there's a few things that I think are really cool, nice little ideas, so I'll show you around. So here we are. It's absolutely pouring down rain, so I don't spend too much time out here, but this is basically what it is. Got the asbestos corrugated roof. This one's had cladding done, and over the years they've updated it by putting plastic windows in. They would have probably had the steel crickle windows in originally, but they all come like a standard sort of size. Now the neighbours are kind of, a lot of them are bricked round over the years and plastered round. This one's fairly much as it would have been originally. They've put a little bit of cladding on the front. I'll take you around the side. This is the back of it, and you can see they're corrugated. There's quite a heavy duty asbestos, if you can hear me over the sound of the rain. So that's that on the back of it. You can sort of see this has had an addition over the years, so it's got an extension on the back where they've just increased the size a little bit. Not a lot to look at out here, so I'll take you indoors. Same on the inside. This actually is the original outside wall, and this must have been an addition at a later date. They've put in what I assume must have been the front door in here. Really trendy kitchen. Now this isn't the original kitchen, and I'll show you there's some original features in the place which I'll show you. So we've got the front room here. Lovely, what I call napalm tiles. These are a polystyrene roof tile. Very common in the 50s and 60s. If you've ever seen these on fire, that's why they're called napalm tiles, because they drip. And yeah, extremely dangerous. So we are going to renovate this property, so I'm showing you as it is now, which is in the raw state, let's put it that way. Nice big rooms. So this actually would be fairly much the size of all of them. I just said you probably got a 12 foot by 20 foot. If we go through to this room here, these are the floors. Now the floors come in sections, so they're pine boards, but they actually lay them down in sections, and all the walls are a fibre board. They go together, basically are clipped onto the steel railing or steel framework, and then you've got these cover strips over. Same with the roof. These are original to the property. These are like a steel door, like a steel locker basically. Now there's some of these outside that I am going to reinstate because I think they're quite cool. So these are put in for obviously for the heating. There's another one there, and in the bedrooms, they're integral in the bedrooms as like built-in wardrobes or built-in closets. So originally this would have had steel doors on. That's tin, like a tin frame. They're quite cool. So in regards to some of the original tin furniture, this is in the garage, and this was one of the original cabinets from out of the bedroom. Tin shelved, again probably flat packed when it turned up. So I think we're going to reinstate that and put it back into the bedroom. And I think this under here is another one, something similar, which probably come out of the bathroom or another one of the bedrooms. So if we can, I'm going to try and get them back to usable condition. I think they're great. So you can see in this room a bit easier, this is probably the original fit out. So this has been exactly as it is. You've got 8x4 sheets on the ceiling, little cover strips to cover it all up, and then the same on the walls. So the walls have got a sheet on of what would be equivalent to plasterboard, but this is normally like a fibre board, like a pinboard material really, and then these little cover strips on all the way around. Now considering this was built in the 50s, and considering it's supposed to last, I don't know, 10 or 15 years, it's surprisingly dry, warm, and quite well constructed really. I mean, we're going to obviously take the carpets up and have a look under the floors, probably insulate them, update all the heating system, get as much of the place running on 12 volt as we can, lighting, etc, etc. Now this is the bit that I find really cool and interesting. Now you can see here, this is basically the frame. You can hear me over the rain. This is the frame of the building. So these are the steel struts. They go from side to side. Quite heavy duty, and it's equivalent probably to a good scaffold. And they run all the way through, and then the walls are like a square box section. Now you can see for yourself, this is absolutely dry as a bone in here, and very heavily constructed. So it's absolutely pouring down rain out there, so I'm not going to do too much around the outside of the place. Suffice to say, there's a bit of a trend locally to knock these down. and just sort of remove them off the site. And as soon as people hear the word asbestos, they start really getting nervous. Obviously these have been lived in and are being lived in now, and all the way through from the 30s, 40s and 50s these were getting constructed and are still a very, very decent accommodation, well over their shelf life, but it's a nice, dry, well insulated, lovely accommodation really, and a lot of people I think would be grateful to have somewhere like this to live in. We're not in the process of knocking it down. We are basically going to try and keep it as original as possible and keep in, I mean obviously not stuff like polystyrene floor tiles and horrible brown carpets, but the floors are going to be brought up, and basically the actual character of the place is going to be kept. And I think it's important when people go on about these new modern passive homes, and I'm involved in building projects along them lines, and there's some fantastic products out at the minute, and there's some really, really, good things that are going to transform the building industry. However, what people don't remember is that all comes from somewhere. That all started off years and years and years ago. Yes, there's been improvements. Yes, we don't use asbestos-based products anymore, etc., etc. But basically, the old prefab homes were the first off-grid, pre-packed passive house, and it's from that we've gained the knowledge to do the sort of the cool and more modern stuff we're doing now. But I think once we get on top of this place and bring it back to its originality, I think it'd be a really cool little museum piece, if you like, or a little bit of nostalgia, but a really cool place to be. Anyway, if you haven't already, subscribe, like, and if you enjoy the videos, just give us a thumbs up or a comment. That's really, really appreciated. I've been getting some really lovely people to do with the wagon painting videos and etc. So yeah, until next time, thanks for watching. Take care.